I have an edgy sense of humor. I like edgy humor, right? I think a lot of things that are quite up are very funny. And what I've had to observe is that a lot of times when I make an edgy joke, it's taken incredibly seriously. But when a white person just says racist things, it is this nuanced freedom of speech moment, and we all need to defend their right to say it. A lot of times white people, when they have a redemption arc like this, we spend a lot of time applauding them for the growth. And I do think that is understandable. But I think while we do that, we have to also understand that not every white person went through I'm going to say the N-word as many different times as I can phase, right? Often when I look at people like iDubbbz, the impression and vibe that I get from their content is these are kids who are very privileged, who haven't really had to deal with actively engaging with marginalized folks, specifically marginalized folks who are people of color. And so there are certain things that they find really funny and really edgy and really interesting that honestly don't really float outside of it. Before we get into this video, I wanted to let you guys know that it's sponsored by my Patreon. Patreon is where I upload a ton of my personal vlogs and other things that I don't post publicly to YouTube. And if you're interested in that sort of thing, definitely check out my Patreon. If you followed my side channel, you know already that I have pushed all of my content from my side channel to my Patreon and will continue to upload that type of content onto my Patreon. Right now, you can see these videos if you are curious. And yeah, I'm excited to expand, and Patreon is exactly how I do that. So if you enjoy my content, consider supporting me on Patreon. Hey guys, it's Kat, and before we get into this video, can I just publicly acknowledge that I'm wearing makeup from last night without you guys judging me too harshly? If you follow me on my Patreon, you know that I started my burlesque journey recently. Shout out to my burlesque mommy, May Lust, who gave me the opportunity yesterday to be a stage kitten for one of her performances. And I put this makeup on for that reason, and then put like a special spray beneath all of it. And for whatever reason, even though I went out after the event to go dancing, my makeup is still in place. And that's disgusting, but low-key, I didn't want to redo my makeup to film this video, so here we are. Disgusting! But anyway, we're not here to talk about my terrible hygiene. We're here to talk about iDubbbz, somebody who I know very little about, but has recently made an apology video that I'm going to watch that I've heard is good. Some people have described it as one of the better apology videos. And so I figured that maybe I would go over what I know, watch the video, and just talk about many of the themes within this particular issue. Now, I always feel the need to point this out whenever I talk about other influencers. I live in the real world, okay? I don't really know everything about iDubbbz. I don't really follow everything that he does. Obviously, I'm aware of some of the things. I'm aware of the Tana situation, which we are going to be reviewing and discussing, but I don't really follow him. I don't know too much about him. Maybe some of the conclusions I make are not going to be accurate or true. Really, when I try to talk about people like this, I'm more so talking about the themes surrounding this, not so much these particular specific people. So hopefully you guys understand that and are mature enough to engage with this conversation the way that I'm trying to, which is let's criticize these ideas, not necessarily harangue this person. All right, so what do I know of iDubbbz? iDubbbz, from my just very cursory understanding, has a series called Content Cop where he reviews other YouTubers' content. And personally, he is a white creator who I really didn't have an interest in to begin with, who I lost even more interest in once I saw clips of him saying the N-word, right? Personally, I watch a lot of trash. I'm gonna be very honest. I watch a lot of trash on this platform, but I don't really have an interest in giving my views to somebody who engages in racism, even if it's ironic racism to make a point. I just don't really particularly find that to be very exciting. And I know that this is going to inform a lot of the thoughts in this video, but I want to make this point really clear before we dive into these videos. Something that I've recognized with time on YouTube is that the vast majority of the people making videos and posting them on YouTube are going to be incredibly privileged, right? You guys know I've been on YouTube from day one. I've been on YouTube since 2005. I was raised upper middle class. I had a computer in my bedroom. I even had special classes in school to help me put together these videos and things like that. So I definitely come from a more privileged background. And as an extension of coming from a more privileged background, I grew up pretty sheltered. Now, in America, at least, a lot of white people who are privileged grow up in these bastions of whiteness where they are the majority. They often live in these areas that are historically white on purpose, right? And so when they come to the internet and they share a lot of what's funny in their town or what is funny to them in this moment, a lot of it often is racist shit that doesn't actually fly outside of those situations. And often when I look at people like iDubbbz, the impression and vibe that I get from their content is these are kids who are very privileged, who haven't really had to deal with actively engaging with marginalized folks, specifically marginalized folks who are people of color. And so there are certain things that they find really funny and really edgy and really interesting that honestly don't really float outside of it. And what's been frustrating, honestly, engaging in some of these conversations is that there's this idea that we need to constantly defend and protect the people who are making that particular content. And it's very bizarre for me to watch. I've watched so many white YouTubers have their N-word moment, their gamer moment. And always these people like endlessly defended. They get to have the redemption arc where they later come back and say, I might have been racist way back when, but I'm not anymore. And Black creators are not treated with even close to the same amount of consideration. Over the years, I've definitely said quite a few off-color things, and I have an edgy sense of humor. I like edgy humor, right? I think a lot of things that are quite fucked up are very funny. And what I've had to observe is that a lot of times when I make an edgy joke, it's taken incredibly seriously. But when a white person just says racist things, it is this nuanced freedom of speech moment, and we all need to defend their right to say it. And it's very bizarre to observe that as a marginalized creator who for a lot of years has felt like I've had to really be careful about what I'm saying, how I'm saying it, and who I'm saying it to in order to have a positive reaction from my audience. I care so little about that now, but it's definitely something that has informed a lot of my YouTube career, and we're trying to let go of that right now. That is the place that we're in. Anyway, we're going to get into some iDubbbz videos to just establish the scene before we get into it. Let's first watch his video clip that he did with Tana. Now, I'm going to start out by saying a lot of these are clips. I'm sure they're clips from larger things. You guys will have to let me know if this is like a misrepresentation of a larger thing. But like I said, for me personally, it doesn't take much for me to look at someone's actions and see what kind of content they produce to be like, I don't really need to watch or follow this person. But anyway, let's get into a couple of these videos. Now, this is the video that iDubbbz made when he was on his way to visit Tana. And this video is still up. It was 6 years ago. God, that was 6 years ago. God, I feel old. Side note, Tana is somebody who's really interesting to me. I don't know a ton about her. I have physically been in the same room as her, and she seems fine, but she seems like a white liberal who jumps onto particular topics when they're hot. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing, but it is definitely it's a thing that's very interesting to observe. So yeah. Anyway, let me play this video and just give you guys my reaction as we go.
We're going on a road trip. We're going to you at the Tana concert in San Francisco. She tweeted some really nice things at me. Road trip. Just a quick little pit stop.
Let's go back. What did she tweet at him? Wow. People were just saying things like, damn, see, this is, oh my God. See, it's funny to me when I see like white creators say, even like this Tana tweet, it's like, it's crazy to me when I look at white creators that are able to just say so much more than me. Like, I've said some edgy things before, but it's like people catalog the 3 edgy things that I've said, and they have used it to negate all of my work forever. It's just very interesting, the difference in reaction. Anyway.
really nice things at me. Trent! Just a quick little pit stop, just so we're in fighting form when we go visit Tana. Trent!
Like, okay, side note, do I hate fun? Because content like this doesn't appeal to me. And I'm sure mine wouldn't appeal to him. I really hate the music in this this video. It's a lot. But at 10 million views, he's doing something right.
A little cherry on the thing.
This camera's like
Say.
Okay, sorry. Okay, that did make me laugh because this was my issue with Tana, right? Like, she got very sanctimonious about people saying the N-word, which is not a bad thing. But then she if this is my remembering all the old drama, then she went out of her way to act like this wasn't me. And white people, it's okay to acknowledge that you used to actually be racist and do racist things. It really is. You don't have to lie. You don't have to fabricate this whole complex, crazy story about how that wasn't actually you. You were going through a dark time or whatever. You can just say that you used to be racist and that you are still probably, and you're working through it. That's enough. You don't have to go the complete opposite direction and change your your Twitter handle to Black Lives Matter and then actually still engage in anti-Blackness, which is something that Tana did. But anyway, that did make me giggle. I've never actually seen this video that did actually make me giggle. See, this is an example of my sense of humor coming out. Okay, she's obviously really upset, and I get it. I totally get it. Especially when you're in that headspace, when you're meeting people and you're greeting people. And because I've been in the situation before, not to her degree though, you have to be engaged and smiley and happy. And you have this constant thought in the back of your mind that everyone who interacts with you has to have a really positive experience with you. And so you want to be engaged and present. But then there are situations, because I've been in not this exact situation, but a similar situation where people come into those spaces to see you rattled and see you bothered. They're not actually there to engage, and that can be disorienting. So I totally get it.
Getting kicked out, apparently. I just wanted to. I'm VIP, though. No, get out.
Okay, that's it. This dumb video has 10 million views. And I remember that this was one of those videos that got a lot of bullshit. Now, we're gonna watch his thoughts about the N-word next, but I think he was right to point out that a lot of people like Tana, they were back then especially new to the Black Lives Matter, I'm against racism game. And they do this thing where they go overboard and they start being like, I'm not like those white people. And then they forget that not only are you those white people, but you do still indeed benefit from racism, right? And I know that sucks to hear, but the answer really isn't like this whole weird song and dance that people often do. Do the work, but actually do the work. Like, for me, Tana's expressions of support for Black folks felt very empty because you could tell that she hadn't actually done the work, right? And I think from my memory at the time, there were several of her Black friends who came out and said, yeah, she is indeed anti-Black, and she was doing these anti-Black things while having Black Lives Matter as her Twitter handle. And that, I think, is worth criticism. But now we have the question of, is this the guy to do it though? Is this the particular guy to do it? So this is a clip from another video, and it is called The N-Word Explained. It was re-uploaded by Tabish Khan, and the video has 152,000 views. So I don't know if this, like I said, this is a clip. Who knows? Maybe this is a misrepresentation or just a part of the video or whatever, but I figured that I would watch it to give you guys my full reaction to his usage of the N-word within his content. Let's get into it.
Point quite well that we are very fucking stupid to hold the word at this colossally high standard, whereas every other slur, that can be used in a comedic sense or an editorial sense, but not this one, because that one has history. Guess what, fucking retards? All the other ones have history too.
Okay.
Zipperhead? Yeah. Asian people didn't get their fucking heads ran over in World War II. They weren't thrown into internment camps. But yeah, but you can't say that one because it's guttural. Either all of them are okay or none of them are okay. It's either all okay or none of it's okay.
All right, that was definitely a thought. I always find it really interesting how a lot of white people really, really want to use the N-word as though they weren't like the ones using it the most. It's actually not very unique or rare for a white person to use the N-word. Like I said, a lot of white people are raised in these mostly white areas where they hear people use these words. And they especially hear them used in a tone where it's clear that they don't like those people. That's why they're using the term. It's usually used for people they don't like. And, you know, as a person who grew up in a very conservative area, I've lived in mostly white conservative areas for, I guess, most of my adult life at this point. I've had some really uncomfortable conversations with white people about the N-word. And it's like, I don't understand why you can just not say it. Like, why is this such a debate that you have to have? Like, he says all these words have history that's hurtful, but they're somehow okay, but they're not, though. All the words that he, you know, had in the corner, like, the vast majority of these words, no one's going to be okay with you saying any of these words. You know, the F word, the K word, the G word, the S word, like, these are not words that people have no reaction to. No one's, oh my God, these words are not nearly as bad as the other word. They're all bad. They're all bad because they were used to dehumanize people. Maybe what he meant is he feels very comfortable saying those terms, but not the N-word because of the response. And it's not like gay people haven't argued against that slur. It's more that because gay people are a minority and because people don't really respect them. And what I mean by that is people are afraid of being criticized for being homophobic, but that's very different than actually respecting gay people, right? There's a difference between I'm afraid of offending this group of people because the blowback will be really intense, so I'm just not going to say it. And I'm not going to say that term because I understand that it's been utilized against LGBT people as a way of harming them. Right now, personally, there's very few slurs that actually do offend me. I actually can't think of a good one that's used against me usually that actually is offensive. Like when I hear somebody use a slur against me, which as a YouTuber who's Black and transgender and not thin, I hear slurs all the time. I've had slurs thrown at me pretty much the first day that I posted a YouTube video way back in 2005. I'm used to people throwing slurs at me, so it actually isn't very offensive to me because it's easy. It's easy. And that's what I get when people have this particular sense of humor, right? It's like you are going to these biases that we accept in society, right? Homophobia, transphobia, racism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and pulling the slurs from those isms and using them to apply to every negative thing or person that you would like to. And it's just so obvious. I like comedy, but I like smart comedy, and I like smart comedy that's often edgy. And unfortunately for me, saying the F slur, saying slurs in general, and that's the joke, to me is very like bottom tier poop humor comedy. Ooh, you farted, haha. It's very that. It's very, we all understand universally that this is probably something that you shouldn't do or something that's embarrassing or something that's offensive. And so you're poking at that, and that's the joke. I don't find that personally very funny. Now, I'm not going to enter the conversation about reclaiming these words or whatever, but I will say that I think it's really interesting that you just can't acknowledge that maybe people don't want you to say it because it's hurtful to them, and that's not enough. And I'm also like, is this funny? When I watch this video, is this funny? Does his audience think that this is funny? I don't know. Let's see what this apology is all about. Now, his apology is called "I Miss the Old iDubbbz," because I can assume, and it's funny, it's really funny clicking to this video too, because he actually looks so different from these previous videos. Like he clearly looks like he's bare minimum grown up a bit. And I can tell that his style has shifted. He doesn't really wear his glasses anymore. He's got tattoos. He's doing a mustache sort of thing, which is a risk, I'll just say. And it's clear that he's changed a bit from who he was when he first filmed those videos. So I'm curious to watch this entire thing. Oh, I didn't know it was 20 minutes. I didn't know this was a 20-minute apology. Okay, I'm gonna get a drink and come right back. The one thing I don't like about having nails is it makes it so hard for me to open up things. And my boyfriend's not here, so I don't have anyone to open up a can for me. Oh, how am I going to do this? Oh my God. What thing do I have in my ooh, I got this little. All right, there we go. Who needs men? Anyway.
I felt like if I changed my content over time, that people would see that as a reflection of who I am and what I value. But I'm starting to realize that is a very weak and passive way to, run my channel and live my life. If I'm going to have the balls to go to a fan meetup and say slurs at her and then make a video about how it's okay to say slurs, I think I should have the balls to make an apology video and take accountability for the mistakes I've made. So that's what this video is.
Okay, I know that we just started, but I feel the need to say this right away because this is actually something that does annoy me. As a YouTuber, there's this kind of idea that you will always be whatever you were when you first came on YouTube. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that's not the case. I have definitely very publicly changed on YouTube, and that's influenced my content because I've changed as a person. And YouTube is different than a lot of other things where, a lot of people who watch YouTubers are watching YouTubers for the YouTuber. The content matters. We care about the content, but a lot of times it's more about the person that you're watching. And when the person that you're watching changes, I know that a lot of people have a hard time with that because you feel like I signed up for this particular person and they're changing now. But the thing is, everybody changes. As a person, you should be wanting to grow. You should be wanting to change. And one of the things that sometimes frustrates me about being a YouTuber is that there are people who often will advocate for you staying where you once were, even after you've acknowledged that it's not where you want to be anymore. When it comes to stuff like this, I have two minds on it. On one hand, I don't feel like I need to be there for your personal change. If you've been racist in the past, I don't really need to come back and celebrate you for at least telling me that you're not going to be racist anymore, right? But at the same token, I do feel like we should acknowledge that by virtue of all of us being in this world, operating within ourselves, we are inherently going to change with time. That is just natural. And I really wish that people in the audience would be more understanding of that. Because sometimes what ends up happening as a YouTuber is you feel like you can't do the things you want to do because your audience is going to be disappointed in you for wanting to do it. And I know I personally have a hard time with that. I'm struggling with that right now because we are definitely switching gears on this channel pretty soon. And I get it. I totally get it. I totally get why I miss the old iDubbbz thing would bother him specifically. So anyway, let's get into it.
I've realized that I need to be crystal clear about what I believe so there's no room for ambiguity. I am responsible for creating a lot of hurtful and damaging content on this channel. And I've also created a culture of apathy and a lot of cruelty as well. Some of the videos I've made have been very not edgy. I don't think some of these videos were edgy. I think they were just outright cruel. I don't want people to get it confused about where I stand. I have made some cruel, hurtful content, and I need to acknowledge that, and I'm really sorry that it's taken me this long to acknowledge it. The content I'm talking about specifically are content cop videos and videos where I was just generally criticizing people for very lackluster reasons and obviously didn't have any accountability online whatsoever on my end. I was morally grandstanding and acting as if I am any better than any of these people that I was making content cop videos on, and I'm not. I'm a human. I'm a real human who makes mistakes, and I make a different set of mistakes than the people I was making videos on, but it doesn't matter. I don't think anyone deserves that level of cruelty or hate. It's also indoctrinated a lot of people into thinking that this is an okay way to behave, and it's not. It's super irresponsible and shitty.
Okay, several things. So I'm realizing actually that I probably need to pause this video and watch a content cop video because I don't have full context on this and I really would like to have full context on this. But I will start off by saying that I actually really appreciate what he's saying here because as a YouTuber, you don't always think fully about the impact your content's going to have on people. I will never forget that I was at VidCon and I kid you not, this 6-year-old ran up to me and was like, I love your content. Oh my gosh, da 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 da. And I was making very different content back then. So it was maybe a little bit okay that a 6-year-old was watching me, but it really made me think about what I was putting out into the world and who was watching my content. Now, I'm very solidly in the I don't give a fuck about kids don't watch my content position right now. However, I do think it is sometimes important for YouTubers to think about their impact on their audience because yes, YouTube is generally more of a young platform. And I don't think encouraging apathy towards slurs and normalizing this idea that if a person of marginalized experience is offended by those slurs that you're saying, they just need to suck it up and take a joke better. I think that's a very sheltered mentality. And I also think that's a very, just very harsh mentality. I think what a lot of privileged people don't actually understand is that calling me the N-word is not really a huge deal. It's a word. I know that it's just a word. You're saying it and it's that, right? But it's the fact that I actually do have to live through racism and experience racism. And then I have people saying racist things to me, but then saying that I can't criticize them or I shouldn't criticize them because I should just learn how to get over it. Like, the people who usually engage in this stuff don't ever really have to do the same thing. I've often had people in the comment sections of my videos get pissed off just because I'm describing a white person as a white person, right? I don't have to say slurs. I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is say that a white person is white. And the next thing you hear, I'm calling for the eradication of white people from the world, right? The way that people react to stuff like that kind of draws attention to the fact that they don't really get it, right? Like, it's not even the word. It's the fact that I'm expected to experience and endure racism. And then also when people utilize racist slurs against me or utilize other types of isms and slurs against me, I'm just supposed to be okay with it. And of course that exists. Of course that is a thing because we live in a history where these isms exist. So we've already been primed for not exactly seeing the humanity in marginalized people. So I think at a certain point, you have to ask yourself, do you want to be a person who sees the humanity in a marginalized person? Or do you want to be a person who continues the dehumanization of a marginalized person? Do you know what I mean? And slurs, one of the easiest ways to do that. So let me stop and watch a content cop video so that I get a bit more understanding of what we're talking about here. Apparently he did private a lot of his content cop videos. Yeah, there's only 9 of them. Were there only 9 content cop videos? I actually don't know. Okay, it's funny because I actually don't know most of these people. I'll click on one with a black guy and see if that one has anything in it. I don't know. I don't really know.
Hey there, folks. I'm the content cop.
Content
is up to par. It's not.
The fucking paper plate on the table just chilling that he clearly used. That's so hashtag relatable. I clean before I film because I want you guys to at least believe kinda that I'm a clean person. I say with last night's makeup on my face.
Bring them to justice. We've all made content that we're not very proud of. Maybe it was a cringy Gangnam Style video from back in the day. Possibly a Slenderman video that you look back and say, ooh, that was pretty gay of me. Maybe you combined both of them and you did a cringy Slenderman Gangnam Style video. Maybe you made a bad thumbnail or two. Maybe you didn't make a thumbnail at all and it was just a still frame of your video because you were either retarded or you couldn't be fucked open Photoshop because you had no passion in what you do. On today's episode of Content Cop, we're going to be looking at Jinx Reloaded. Reload.
Oh, this was the guy
It would make too much
who
sense if it was called Jinx Reloaded.
I think this was the guy who literally would just re-upload videos and be like, I gotta do that. I gotta get on that.
Let's start things off with an education. How to get YouTube famous. Oh, apparently you get YouTube famous by promoting your shitty t-shirt in the first 5 seconds of the video.
Now what I did was set my goal to outdo everything they did.
Maybe you thought you were going to outdo the other reaction channels by improving your video quality? Oh no, that's just going to stay at 720p. I can't go any higher. I couldn't be fucked. I upload 4 videos a day. You know how long it's going to take if it's 1080p? I'll kill myself. Holy shit. He doesn't think he's outdoing his competition because his videos are improving. He thinks he's outdoing his competition because he has a different backdrop every 4 videos. Don't misunderstand me now. I'm not talking about his bedroom. That all stays the same. What I'm talking about are bucket hats. This is the secret formula to maintaining a positive like-dislike ratio while producing terrible content.
Basically, reaction channels can do anything they want, and people are going to come see their personality or their reaction to things.
I really like the subtext there. They're coming to see the personality or the reactions to things. They're not coming to see the video at all. Pfft, no, that's not even part of the puzzle. If the video wasn't there at all, everyone would still tune in. That's why my personality channel is just fucking booming. Where I give you my take on politics. Yeah, go check out the Jinx Politics channel.
I literally came through and reacted to anything. It didn't matter. Viral videos, trailers, games.
Oh, damn, we finally figure out how he outdid everyone. It's because he stole the content from everywhere. It didn't matter. He stole it from the Vine compilations. Try not to laugh Vine compilations. Your grammar sucks. Markiplier cries on camera.
You don't get a break in the beginning. No resting. 100% 24/7 grind.
Damn, this nigga's on the grind. That shirt shouldn't say, it's about that time. It should say, it's about that grind. 4 videos a day, non-stop editing. I'm like an animator. I put so much work into my videos. I'm like sitting there keyframe after keyframe trying to figure out how to put this fucking video in the corner of my screen. Grind, mad grind. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, nothing but grind. I'm on the grind. My house, this ain't a normal house. It's a grind house.
Okay, as you can see, I'm not laughing. And I'm not not laughing on purpose. There are moments I giggled. Like I giggled at the fucking plate. I thought that was funny. But in my personal opinion, and look, I like comedy. I go to comedy shows all the time. I just don't find him very funny. But the thing I'm realizing is if I were a person who wasn't used to hearing someone who looks like him saying the N-word or saying a slur, the slur would be funny, right? The slur itself would be really funny, right? And it would be funny in that, oh my God, I can't believe he said that kind of way, right? I'm not going to say that those moments can't be funny because there's like a lot of comedy in, oh my God, he's saying the thing that most people aren't going to say. Or he's so socially unaware that he's saying this thing and he doesn't understand that it's offensive, or he does, but he's saying it anyway kind of thing. Like that can sometimes be funny, but I just don't find him in general to be funny. I've never watched a content cop video, so I don't know. This is my first time, but like, why do people like these? I don't get it personally. I personally don't get it. But anyway, let's go back to his apology. Because you can see in that video that he definitely expressed isms and things like that. But I think a lot of the isms were him saying edgy words, saying the N-word, saying various slurs as a punchline. Like the joke is that he said the word. So in that way, I guess he is being apathetic towards the isms and such, but I don't know. It could be that he deleted the more gratuitous videos, but I guess I was expecting it to be a bit more gratuitous for a 17 minutes and 25 second apology video. But I think he definitely should have apologized for doing what he did to Tana. Obviously, it was fucked up and bad, but like knowing that Tana also said the N-word and then she got on her soapbox about him saying the N-word. I don't know. I giggled. I did giggle.
I am very insecure about my ability to create interesting content
or
entertain.
Okay.
It's gotten better over the years.
I was not expecting to immediately click back into him literally saying that. Oh my God. Because that's the vibe it gives. It gives very much, this is the easiest thing I can say. And that's why, like, again, calling me a slur, it's not offensive to me. Calling me the N-word or the T-slur or any of the various slurs, I'm at the point where I'm like, I'm gonna need y'all to come up with some new slurs. Come up with a new slur that's actually offensive, because you can only call me a monkey ape so many different times before I'm like, okay, I do personally identify. Now what? I don't know.
But it's something that I have struggled with constantly. And it's one of the reasons why I ended up pivoting it into other things, because I felt bad about it innately, but it's still something that I struggle with, and I don't want you to interpret that as an excuse, but I hope that is relatable to other creators who maybe struggle with the same thing.
Definitely.
I'm not confident in my ability to entertain.
Not that part, but it is really hard to pivot. It is really hard to pivot and change. I won't mention names, but there was an anti-SJW YouTuber who I ran into at VidCon a couple years ago, and he was somebody who made a lot of racist content, but he was at a point where he wanted to not be racist anymore, where he was starting to see the error of his ways and kind of felt disgusted with some of the stuff that he was posting. And his dilemma was, he knew that if he were to change his path and to not be racist, in fact, to come out and say that people shouldn't be either, that he would lose a huge chunk of his support. And so he decided to keep going down that direction, and then at some point said that he was going to shift directions, but ultimately he didn't. I don't know what he's doing now, but as far as I know, he's still saying fucked up shit, because that's what pays. That's what's so interesting to me, again, about all of this. If you listen to a lot of the ways that people are talking about trans stuff and CRT, you would think that people who engaged in these isms would actually not be very successful. But my observation is that they often are, because unfortunately, the reality is that more people are primed to support these isms than they are for counteracting them. Racism is so normalized and so accepted as just part of our world that actually significantly standing against it, actively, significantly rejecting white supremacy is a very radical thing. It's actually radical because it really would require you to uproot a lot of what we have come to know. And most people don't want to do that. It is much easier, for example, for somebody to believe that a Black person is mentally deficient and could never be in a leadership role than it is for them to say that a Black person is capable of leadership and can definitely be in a leadership role. All we have to do is look at the presidency, right? Now, I'm not a fan of any president of the United States, but all we have to do is look back at Obama. And this was like a great example of this, right? A lot of white people genuinely struggled with the idea that a Black man could be the leader of this country, to the point where we are to this day still dealing with the fact that so many people were upset by that, right? A lot of people, they might not have seen themselves as racist, but their racism shows in the fact that they couldn't even imagine that there would be somebody capable of leading the country who was not a white man. And that's one of the ways that racism peaks its ugly head. You don't think that you're racist. You believe that you're not a person who engages in those isms, but you intrinsically would see a person of color and not believe that they're capable of their job, because white supremacy says that the only people who are capable of their jobs are white people, right? And so it's one of those things where I think that being ironic about racism is hard to really do as a white man, frankly, because it requires a degree of understanding and knowledge that, frankly, most white people are not primed to have, right? You would have to be really aware of racism, I think, in order to be a white man, make racist jokes, and have them be ironic in a real sense, right? Most of the time I've seen people make these jokes like that, it usually just comes off as racist. Anyway.
If I had to rely on my personality to entertain people, that I wouldn't have any amount of success. And that is really hard to come to terms with. I was being very bigoted in a lot of my videos, and I justified it because I didn't think it was too serious. And I thought that people were going to see that I had good intentions, but that's so silly. Casual racism is still racism. Casual bigotry is still bigotry. And I said a lot of things that I look back at and I cringe now, and I'm like, that is...
And you know what? I'm appreciating a lot of what he's saying in this video, because here's the thing, you guys, and I really want to make this point very clear. I sometimes, when I enter into these conversations, I have to divide myself, because there is a part of me that really thinks fucked up jokes are really funny. But there's also another part of me that understands that a lot of times, because we live in a society where we're not often actually educated about a lot of our differences and marginalizations in an honest way, the point between this being a joke and this being actual oppression is muddied, right? Like, I'm not going to mention names, right? But there was a fairly well-known white cis male streamer who said something very misogynistic and then said, oh, it's ironic, right? And the only way you might have actually felt that it was ironic is if you knew who he was, understood that he would never engage in misogyny. And I think sometimes people in Idubb's position, they assume that people engaging with them would just know that they're not a misogynist or not a racist. But like I said, when I casually just saw some of Idubb's content and I heard him being racist and being terrible to other groups, even if he was a very educated, aware white man who knew the things and understood the things, for me, my experience with him was just him being racist, right? So I don't have this way of looking past what I initially see to see the nuance and see the irony. It's just, it doesn't really happen. And so you have to think about, if you're going to express yourself in that way, you should accept that people are going to take it a certain way. And when I do similar things and make similar jokes, I accept that if I'm going to say things a certain way, there's going to be a segment of the population that's going to take it very seriously. Now, I don't usually tend to do that about slurs and other things, but there are a handful of situations where I know that people are not going to be able to read the irony, and I accept that people are probably going to judge me as though I actually mean this, right? And so that's made me a bit more careful about what I say.
It doesn't matter what my intentions are. Like, if I'm hurting people, I'm hurting people. And who the fuck knows what my intentions are? Sarcasm and jokiness and jokey tone only goes so far, especially over the internet. Even in real life, that's like an impossible thing to know with 100% certainty. I've just always had this dumb philosophy that I'm not responsible for my audience and how they behave beyond what content I put out. And that's stupid. And it's led to a lot of hate and a lot of bad outcomes. And I just want to make it clear that I am absolutely responsible for my audience. And I guess if you want to look out for people who are red flags, it's definitely people who had my mentality that say, I'm not responsible for what my audience does.
Okay, so this is one of those things where I have a very divided mind on. So on one hand, I don't think that YouTubers are responsible for their audience, right? Like, I think to some degree, you cannot control what the audience does, right? This is something that I always interact with a lot, because I've been on the receiving end of many harassment campaigns, right? Where somebody will make content about me or they will reference me, and the next thing you know, I'm being yelled at, I'm getting slurs thrown at me all day because some stupid person decided that they were going to promote that. And there's a way that people do this where they make it clear that they don't want that to happen. And then there's a way where people do this where you can tell that's what they want. They want for people to bum rush you, to be racist, to be shitty towards you, because that's what they think is going to win favor from the person who they're idolizing. I do think that some YouTubers do need to be a bit more responsible about telling their audience what they don't want. So it's important to say things like, no hate to this person, please don't send hate at this person. It's important to say those things, I think. And I think in the little bit of content that I watched, again, I probably don't have the full picture, but the little bit of content that I watched, he definitely was encouraging indifference towards very obvious basic bigotry. I think when he made those videos, I don't think he might have thought, oh, I'm going to encourage people to walk up to marginalized people and say slurs. I don't think he thought that's what I'm doing. I think he was making edgy jokes that performed well, but I don't know if he fully comprehended. And I think that part of growing as a creator is acknowledging that to some point you do have a responsibility for your audience. The I can't control what my audience does mentality really, in my view, only goes up to a certain point. You definitely can discourage people who admire you from attacking other people.
I know that this apology isn't enough. I've clearly done a lot of damage. These videos have been up for a long time and have accumulated millions of views. I shouldn't be able to just make an apology video and walk away from it. This is something that I should live the rest of my life with, and I expect to. I've profited off of this big for years.
And that's one thing I think is important to draw attention to. He has 7.5 million subscribers. The content comp video that I saw, let's go back to it, 19 million views. So he made a lot of money on this one particular video. And I'm just saying that as a YouTuber. He made a lot of money. He made a lot of money. When my videos get 1% of that, I make a good amount of money. So he made a lot of money from these videos where he's very casually using slurs, right? So it makes sense that if you're a person who started to understand that might not be the right thing to do, that you would look around and say, okay, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, because it's hard to look at the money that you have when you've been doing those things and actually see it as like money well earned, if you actually feel that way, right?
And I've made a successful career out of it, and that's not right. I think that this is only a step in the right direction, and I know that a lot more needs to be done to even approach a life that I would think would be like acceptable. I am running ads on this video, and any revenue generated from this video I'm going to match and donate to an organization that would have been particularly affected by the type of rhetoric that I've been spewing on this channel. And again, this isn't the end of what I'm doing, this is just the start. I don't feel like a lot of this content represents me as a person, at least not anymore. There was a time where it probably perfectly represented me because I was a nasty, apathetic, insecure person. Now that I don't feel like it represents me and I want to distance myself from it and keep it from indoctrinating more people, I'd like to unlist the videos so that people can access them still for whatever purposes they might want to do that for, but it's not being proliferated on the website. I feel like that's the best solution, at least for the time being. And for anyone who liked those videos, I want this video to be an example and a lesson for you. You can like content, but you can also think that it's irresponsible and it's hurting other people. Just tap into that part of your brain that's saying, oh, okay, it's probably not that important that this video stays online, because truthfully, I've seen it, I've experienced the content, but it's done a lot of damage. We can just let it go. I'm sorry to everyone that I made content cop videos on. I still don't like the majority of you, and that's fine, but I can recognize that you did not deserve the hate and harassment that I sent your way. I particularly want to apologize to Tana. Tana, I'm sorry. I should have never made that video. I harassed Tana in person and then harassed her online, and that's deplorable behavior. It's so stupid. I'm also sorry to all the Black viewers and minority groups who had to put up with that video and put up with the phrases. I said either it's all okay or none of it's okay. And that's just so dangerous and stupid. I have made content that I'm proud of over the years. It hasn't been as consistent as maybe I'd like it to have been, but there is a lot of content that I think had a net positive on the world.
You know what though? Do you know what's really fucked up about this though? And this is the harsh thing about being a YouTuber, is that realistically, the content that he made where he was saying the slurs and being that guy, that content performed well. And sometimes the reality of switching gears is that what you want to do, what actually is fulfilling to you, what actually does feel like content that you can be proud of, is often not what people want, especially when they've become so used to getting a certain type of content from you, right? His audience really likes the version of him saying slurs, the version of him who is offensive, and shifting gears, that might result in a lot of people not having an interest in staying on board. But I think that it's important for him as a creator to understand where he's at, because personally for me, I know that there's certain types of content that people really want from me that I would hate making because it would chip away at my soul. That's how I feel, right? And I had to accept that I'm just not going to be that person. Do you know what I mean? I'm just not going to be that person who makes content that I look back at and resent. I want to be able to be proud of what I post. Like I said, when you're a YouTuber, you post this stuff, you don't always think about your audience. And I think maybe what might have happened with him is he probably at a certain point started going out into the world. Like, where is iDubbbz from? Let me see where iDubbbz is from. iDubbbz hometown. So iDubbbz is from Seattle, Washington. What is the racial stats of Seattle, Washington? So basically 70% white, and there's only 0.2% black folks, right? And I don't know if he still lives there, but I imagine that as he got older and more successful, he started traveling more, he started interacting with people more, he became more worldly, he got to know different types of people, and the type of humor that he found hilarious in his mostly white area where he didn't know very many minorities, and he could say all those things and not really be corrected or feel like he would actually be offending anyone. I'm sure all of that felt good at the time, but then once you get older and your reference point widens, you suddenly start to be like, oh, wait a minute. There's a lot of shit that I used to believe in when I was sheltered, when I lived in my little small town, that I don't anymore because I've become a more well-rounded person, as we all should be trying to, right? And I can tell that I think he really probably started to understand that, right? And that's what I said. Like at the top of this video, I talked about how I think a lot of people have to understand that the vast majority of YouTubers that you see are very privileged and very sheltered, because that's usually who is able to make videos in their home and make it their full-time job, right? You got to have enough space. You got to have a quiet enough space. You usually need to have great internet. You need access to internet. Like, all of those things are expensive, and there's a lot of people who don't have them. So a lot of the people that you see are people who have tons of privilege. And a lot of times when you live with privilege, you are sheltered. And I can tell that he's probably had more experiences, gotten to know more people, and has shifted his views because of it. And I think that's actually a really good thing. I think that's a really healthy thing. And unfortunately, I think the segments of his audience that really appreciated that type of content probably are not yet there. That's the impression I get. So when they call somebody the N-word or an F slur, it's still this intangible thing to them. They don't actually see the impact. But once you do, you start to shift your views. There's a lot of isms that I definitely used to lean heavily into that I do not anymore, because I've actually gotten to know people who are those things. And that's what I'm just making a narrative, but that's what I'm putting together from some of what he's saying here. Because he had an air of confidence and just like a cockiness about the way he was talking that is not present in this video. Like, you can just tell that he's grown up a bit.
I also want to give some clarity to the post-fight speech that I gave. I mean, it wasn't a speech. It was a phrase. I was like, I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but
he was in a boxing match. I'm sorry.
The sport, and thank you for. That was addressing the people over the years that I neglected and I left behind. The people whose feelings I didn't take into consideration. Those are the people who I was addressing as, I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea. Anyone who thinks that I should be shouting the N-word from the rooftops, I don't want to be your cup of tea. Now I want to talk about events and situations that have happened over the past 5 years of my life that have led me to the place I'm at.
See, here we are. We're going to talk about it.
One year I was at a convention and a bunch of fans were wanting pictures, and this particular fan came up to me and said, I know you probably don't like transgender people, but can I get a picture?
Yep.
That smacked me in the face. I was like, oh, holy shit. Why would you think that?
Yep.
But it was fairly obvious. I was being cruel, hateful, bigoted, and being very uncaring about people's feelings.
Yep.
That is a very fair assessment to make.
Yep.
I was giving this person bad vibes, and I think I've given a lot of people extremely bad vibes.
Yep.
Another event that was very important for me to experience was I went on a boxing podcast. I was basically like trying to walk back my Tana content cop. I was still very like insecure and uncomfortable with the fact that I made that video, but I was still coping. You'll see me struggle in this clip to say that it was wrong.
I just wanted to let you talk on that, right? Because obviously using the N-word is definitely frowned upon by a lot of people, especially by a non-African American, but I was just curious.
That was a very weird video because I wanted to criticize her for her flagrant use of it. I've been pretty flagrant about it too, not in the same way. And I thought there was a message to be shared there. And I don't think it was particularly... It was okay in criticizing her, but I think I probably wasn't the person to deliver the message, if that makes sense.
What did I say? Okay. I'm dead at the fact that I keep saying these things before they actually happen, right? I think that he was right to criticize Tana for being a person criticizing other people saying the N-word while she says the N-word. What the fuck is that about, right? But he also does that, so he's not the right person to criticize Tana for doing it. I think Tana definitely deserved to be criticized for her fake allyship, her performative allyship, her weird denial of saying the N-word, right? But he's somebody who boldly said, say slurs. So if that's how you feel, why are we even saying it? We know why the engagement happened. Clout, right? Tana was very hot at the time. I don't know if she still is. And I know that there's a lot of people who, used her and this for content, right? But it is still important to point out that he's not the right person to make that criticism. And especially walking up and saying it the way that he did, not the right thing to do. So I appreciate that he looks back at that and understands that it's not the right way to go about it.
A message that I was trying to put out there, and I'm not really the person to put out that message. I don't regret making the video. I think there's bits and pieces to take from it that I think are valuable, but I probably wouldn't make it these days. I'm very grateful to those guys and how they broached the subject because it didn't put me on the defensive. It just made me realize I'm stupid. I'm stupid and I really need to acknowledge these things. What am I doing? I'm still trying to make excuses for myself and why I made that video. It was a dumb idea. I harassed someone. I was saying slurs and I was trying to justify it all. A very big thing that has altered my view on all of this is just the amount of hate and harassment my wife, Anissa, has received over the years. She's had to deal with it from the beginning of our relationship, and I have done a horrible job at acknowledging her and her feelings for it. A lot of the time I just thought that was her problem or that was other people's problem. Like, it's not my problem that you're getting hate and harassment. And it's, no, it absolutely is. That's the...
Oof, I would not continue sleeping with someone who is so comfortable seeing me get harassment for something that he did. I'm glad he's recognizing it because she was a saint for staying with him for that long, knowing that he felt that way.
the culture that I cultivated, and I didn't do anything to change that. Over the years, it's changed a little bit, but I don't think I've still fully acknowledged how responsible I am for the amount of harassment that Anissa has had to deal with. And this year, I decided to speak more candidly and be more open about who I am as a person and to speak on my life a little bit more. And I did that on Anthony Padilla's podcast. These are the people that I'm attracting. These are the people that I'm entertaining. I need to reevaluate things. They're relating and enjoying this content for a reason, and that's not maybe the same reason that I'm trying to make. I had a very Wild West mentality when it came to online behavior. People are going to do what they want to do. People are going to say what they want to say. And I can pretty much do the same because it's the internet. But I think you have to be a lot more responsible. If you guys are at all...
And you know what? The internet is a Wild West. It is. Look, y'all, I've been posting shit online since I was 13. I'm 32. You know, it's been a Wild West for a while, right? But I think responsible people who have platforms do at some point say, I'm going to make sure that the people in my audience know that I feel this way about this and that I am not going to engage in certain types of activity. And I'm not going to support certain types of bigotry. And a lot of times for me, whenever people are like, oh, I'm not responsible for my audience. Yeah, maybe I have a lot of Nazis in my audience, but I'm not responsible for my audience, whatever. I get where you're coming from with there. I get how you get there. But if you've got a lot of Nazis in your comment section, that might be worth criticizing and questioning. It might be worth questioning why that is. And it also might be worth making it incredibly clear that's not how you feel and you don't want those people in your audience.
All interested in how I've arrived here, that video gives a good bit of context and talks about some of my life a little bit. There is a clip from this interview that's been floating around the internet, and it's me calling my fans antisocial and basement dwellers, and I was like, I didn't like interacting with my fans. I just want to be clear, that was my realization. I think a lot of people are like, of course that happened, is because you were creating that culture and you were attracting those people. And it's, yes. I know. I know now. I didn't know before.
Exactly.
It was my realization
what I say.
Upon meeting more and more fans that I was like, oh shit, you guys are struggling.
Yep.
It was easy for me to identify them struggling when they were outside of my body.
Yep.
But the antisocial basement dwelling incel that was inside here, I couldn't acknowledge that. I couldn't recognize that.
Yep.
So I needed the mirror to be held up to me.
Yep.
In closing, I want to say that I have always thought that I was an empathetic person because I thought, I get angry, I get sad, of course I got empathy. Seems easy, right? Empathy? I definitely have that. There were moments where a dog would die in a film and I'd cry, so of course I have empathy. But I never did. I think only in these past couple of years have I gained the ability, empathy, and I'm very ashamed to admit that. It sounds really pathetic. 32, I've acquired empathy.
Or the same age.
But I have, and I've realized it because I just can't help myself but like feel for other people's pain and suffering now. I'm still not perfect. I think that is, my empathy meter's only maybe like a quarter of the way filled up, potentially. But it's at least there. And I just want you guys to know that you can unlock ability, empathy, if you experience more life. It might take you getting hurt a little bit.
Exactly.
But it's worth it. It is so worth it. So thank you for watching, everyone. I do want to create more regular content, and I don't want to just have the next 5 videos be apologies. So I have uploaded a squirrel video on my second channel if you want to watch that. I guess as one final thing, I just want to thank everyone who's given me the space and the compassion to grow as a person, because it's taken longer than it probably should have. I appreciate everyone, and I think most importantly, I appreciate my wife, Anissa. She has been insanely compassionate and helpful and patient in allowing me to grow over the years, and has legitimately encouraged me to be a better person, and not a better person in just like the iDubbbz becoming woke kind of way. She has She was the one who said that I should try this boxing thing. I would have never done that on my own because I was insecure and I was pathetic. I did this and I am so glad I did. It's been amazing. Anissa, I love you. You're amazing.
Aww.
Right now you're streaming, but bon voyage, toodles.
Can I also share something about this too, about the expansion of empathy? This is just me being very real and sharing about my life for a second. You guys know more recently, I have been in a relationship. I'm polyamorous, but I now have a primary partner, and I have this primary partner for the first time. And a lot of our relationship is me taking care of him and making sure that he's doing well. And we see each other almost every day right now. And there is something about when you really love someone and you realize the depth of that love for a person, it allows you to also widen your empathy for other people. And I haven't really figured out exactly what that's about, but just the idea of having to think about somebody else and have to think about in a very continuous way, because I see him every single day. What does he need? Is he okay? Is he doing well? I would never want anything bad to happen to him. Those really basic things that obviously assume you'd feel about somebody that you love, but when you really love someone, it becomes nuanced and it becomes deeper. And you just start realizing that like everyone should probably have somebody out there that's thinking about them a little bit. So at base, empathetic to people who are not you. And I think a lot of people, when they experience love, real love, are able to also have their empathy expanded in a similar way. But I think for some people, we go through this world, especially when we're younger, feeling this frustration about the fact that we have to leave the house and interact with other people, about the fact that we have to do something uncomfortable and unfamiliar, right? And I think because of that, you can quickly, very easily fall into these isms, right? These isms that have been reinforced historically. And when you fall into those isms, it allows you to have a reason why you shouldn't care about those other people, have a reason why you shouldn't be empathetic towards them. And I just think it's very interesting to think about that because it's definitely something I've more recently experienced because I'm definitely a way more giving and empathetic person since I've fallen in love. So that's that. But anyway, those are my thoughts on Idubbz. So the thing about it is I have watched like 1 or 2 commentary videos from other people about this situation. And there's a couple of videos I've watched where people are basically saying that this is him destroying his career, right? There's a lot of people who are calling him too sensitive. They're saying that he's being like cucked and shit because of this stuff. And honestly, if I'm being real, as somebody who watched a lot of apology videos on YouTube, especially Tana apology videos, this did seem very genuine. This really did seem very genuine. Now, am I going to seek out Idubbz content? Probably not. But if I see him at a convention, I won't have the feeling that I had before where I just dismissed him as somebody who was probably a racist, right? And the thing about that is you guys got to understand, I know that for a lot of white people that seems like a really harsh thing for me to do, right? Just dismiss somebody without knowing much about them, but it's protecting myself. And I think that somebody who has empathy for other people, especially has empathy for marginalized folks, would understand that's what that is. And they wouldn't turn it into a, so, oh my gosh, you hate me because I'm white and because you've expressed yourself in a specific way that tells me that you're probably not safe to be around. And the crazy part about that is when we have that particular conversation, why are you judging me or saying that I'm racist just because I'm white? We completely ignore that the other end of that conversation is that I have been encouraged to be indifferent to people who are saying racist things, right? Like, that's a part of the conversation that will always be really funny to me. It's like, okay, so you just spent a bunch of time saying that I shouldn't be offended by the N-word, right? but you're offended by me thinking that you're a racist because you said that. It's a very strange thing. But anyway, I just wanted to share my thoughts. I think it's really sad that there are people that are like, oh my God, he's ruining his career by saying this. A lot of people are very predictably attacking him for saying that he doesn't want to do these things anymore. And I think that says it all. I think when you meet your audience in person, they become real. And like I said, I think for a lot of us, we don't always think about that. We are just over here creating content. We see that it performs a certain way, and most of us are just putting our head down and working hard. So we're not necessarily looking up and taking account of who's in our audience and what kinds of people are saying what. We're just making our content, doing our job, right? And I think that for him, he probably really did need to have those experiences where he actually interacted with people who followed him, and he understood that because of the way that he's put his content out there, because of the way that he's been dismissive towards other groups of people that are not him, that there are people out there who feel like he is a certain way, and that he does feel a certain way about minorities. And I'm actually really happy to hear that he shifted that. I'm not gonna say I'm a stan, because that's definitely not where I'm at, but I did actually leave this video with a deeper appreciation for Idubbz. But at the same time, there are a lot of, as I give him his accolades, I do think it's important to say that there are a lot of people who would never go down the path of, I'm gonna say the N-word. Because that's the thing, a lot of times white people, when they have a redemption arc like this, we spend a lot of time applauding them for the growth. And I do think that is understandable. But I think while we do that, we have to also understand that not every white person went through I'm gonna say the N-word as many different times as I can phase, right? But I'm still happy to hear that he's shifting his approach and his views. I think that is very mature, and I think that it's important that he share that message to encourage other people to do the same, because racism, it's not a vive. Anyways, on that note, I will talk to you guys later. If you guys want to see some content that I have ready to go right now, you can always check out my Patreon, where I upload private vlogs about my life, relationships, conflicts that I have with certain people in my real life. I make a lot of private vlogs where I vent and talk about my life and things. But anyway, on that note, I will talk to you guys later. I want you guys to always remember and to never forget that you are beautiful and you are loved. Bye.